President Biden took his first steps towards reducing gun violence by signing several executive actions.
Gun violence in this country is an epidemic, and it's an international embarrassment.
In just the last 7 days, guns have killed 345 people in this country. And last year, more than 19,000 people died from gun violence in the United States of America. That is according to the Gun Violence Archive. For more on this, I want to bring in Kris Brown, president of Brady, a gun control advocacy nonprofit. So thanks for joining us, Kris. For people who might not be familiar with ghost guns or stabilizing braces, explain what those are and what these executive actions do.
Yes, thank you. There's 6 executive actions that were announced yesterday, and you're referencing 2 of them. Ghost guns are guns that can be bought in kits. They're not fully finished firearms, and because of really a glitch in law, they're not regulated as firearms. Therefore, they're sold without serial numbers, as all fully finished firearms must be, and they're sold with no background checks. So yesterday, what the president announced is that he will ask Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, to regulate ghost guns just like regular firearms. And that's so important because we've seen ghost guns proliferate in crime scenes all across this country, especially over the last several years. And the other executive actions equally address all kinds of issues that, frankly, are pretty straightforward that need to be addressed, but haven't in some cases in 2 decades. I'll just point to one other that's so important. He directed the ATF to issue a report on gun trafficking. That sounds pretty straightforward, but we haven't had that report in 20 years. The NRA has stopped that from happening, and that will be critically important to help us understand the relative handful of gun dealers that are supplying crime guns into communities all across this country, ravaged with everyday gun violence. So we're really thrilled with these announcements from the White House.
And you were at the President's Youth Conference yesterday in the Rose Garden. What was that like? I know that there were other gun advocates, gun safety advocates in the audience as well. What was it like to be there?
You know, it was just incredible. And for us, we are an advocacy organization. We support whichever candidates have the boldest steps that they're going to take to end a uniquely American epidemic. And there is no one better in national office than President Biden. He understands this issue. He worked with Jim and Sarah Brady to pass the Brady law, to pass the assault weapons ban. He talked so passionately about what needs to happen, called Congress to act, and he understands the pain of far too many individuals who were with me in that audience, like Fred Guttenberg, like Mark Barden, like many others, Greg Jackson, who either have lost children and relatives to gun violence or themselves are victims. So it was just incredible and really is a new day for us. The first step in many, though. We have an epidemic and we need to treat it like one, a public health epidemic, which is exactly the wording that President Biden used.
And at the event yesterday, President Biden said he wanted to see even more changes to the country's gun laws. I want to play a bit of what he said for our audience.
We should also ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines in this country. For that 10 years we had it done, the number of mass shootings actually went down. Even law enforcement officials have told me and told other champions of this legislation, they sometimes feel outgunned by assault weapons with large capacity magazines.
So do changes to gun laws like the one President Biden is pushing here actually violate the Second Amendment, which is what a lot of gun advocates say?
Not unless you view the Second Amendment as tantamount to a death sentence to our fellow Americans. Absolutely not. Every court that's ever looked at the kinds of proposals that President Biden is putting forward has held them constitutional, completely consistent with the Second Amendment. They also reflect what Americans across this country want. Poll after poll shows it's not just half of Americans, it's 90% plus that want expanded Brady background checks, that want to make sure that it's harder for individuals who are at risk to themselves or others to have easy access to guns. And most Americans, more than a majority, believe weapons of war have no place in places of peace. These are very, very common sense measures. And Joe Biden is right. When we had an assault weapons ban in effect for a decade, the use of those weapons in mass shootings was reduced by almost 25%. We think these are the right kinds of investments, and America is worthy of those investments. We can save lives.
President Biden also made a vow, he made a promise to fight the issue of gun violence on the campaign trail last year. I want to play a bit of what he had to say when he was running for president.
In fact, my first day of office, I'm going to send a bill to the Congress repealing the liability protection for gun manufacturers, closing the background check loopholes and the waiting period.
So the Biden administration aides have been telling CBS News that plans for this legislation is still in the works, but we are 80 days into his presidency now, multiple mass shootings in the past few weeks. At what point does the president, at what point is the president's ability to affect real change here limited because of just the makeup of our Congress and of the Senate?
Well, look, I was standing just to President Biden, then candidate Biden's right when that press conference happened. He has inherited among the most difficult national circumstances you can imagine coming into the presidency. But you're right, he doesn't have all of the time in the world. Really, we need to move forward with these legislative changes today, now, because what's at stake is real human lives. You know, we have 316 people on average who are shot in this country. Over 100 die every single day. The bill he's referencing, which would repeal the immunity that Congress gave years ago to the gun industry, that is being sponsored and has been every year in Congress by the incredible Representative Adam Schiff. He is moving forward with reintroducing that bill, and we want to hear the president continue to echo and push Congress to act. If they can't pass these bills out of the Senate, because they are passing the House, 2 of these bills are already pending in the Senate, then we have to seriously reconsider the filibuster. Because with 90% of Americans saying these things should happen, we shouldn't have a procedural Jim Crow rule stand in the way of making legislation that will save lives.
All right, Kris Brown, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.